The old brass compass sat on my kitchen table, its needle stuck no longer spinning. Dad gave it to me when I was 12, saying it would always point me home. Back then, I thought home meant him and Mom, their cozy Vermont farmhouse filled with the smell of cedar and cinnamon. Now at 36, staring at it under the dim glow of my kitchen light, it felt like a broken promise. Home wasn't with them anymore. Maybe it never was. My phone vibrated, snapping me out of my thoughts. Mom's name glowed on the screen. I took a deep breath, bracing myself. Her calls always carried an undercurrent of judgment, like I was perpetually falling short of some invisible standard. But with Christmas a few weeks away, I figured she was calling to plan the family gathering. Zoe and Finn were already buzzing about decorating Grandpa's tree and sneaking extra cookies from Grandma's tray. I answered, keeping my voice light. "Hey, Mom, how's it going?" "Lena, dear," she said, her tone polished, the kind she used when she wanted to sound kind but wasn't. "We need to talk about Christmas. Your father and I are thinking of doing something a bit more refined this year." I leaned against the counter, picturing the kids stringing popcorn garlands, their laughter echoing through the house. "Refined sounds nice," I said. "Like a fancy dinner or something." A pause, sharp and heavy. "Well, yes," she said, her voice tightening. "We're keeping it intimate, just adults. Nathan and Rachel will be there, of course, and we'd love for you to come. Maybe bring a date." My stomach dropped. "No kids at all." She cleared her throat. "Not quite. Nathan's girls will be there. They're so well-mannered, Lena. You know how Zoe and Finn can be a bit overwhelming." The words sliced through me, clean and cold. "Overwhelming," I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. "Oh, don't take it the wrong way," she said, like she was scolding a child. "They're darling, but they're always climbing on things, making a mess. Nathan's girls are just easier to manage. We want a peaceful evening, that's all." I gripped the edge of the counter, my nails digging into the wood. "So Nathan's kids get to come, but mine don't." "Lena, it's not personal," she snapped, as if I were the one being unreasonable. "It's just one night. You're welcome to join us, you know that." One night. But it wasn't just one night. It was every night, every year, every moment I'd spent trying to measure up to Nathan, the golden son, the aerospace engineer with the perfect wife and the perfect daughters who never spilled juice or raised their voices. My kid Zoe with her endless questions and wild imagination, and Finn with his boundless energy and sticky fingers. They were too much. I'd heard it my whole life. Nathan was the star, the one who made Mom and Dad proud. I was just Lena, the dreamer who chose to raise 2 kids alone, scraping by on freelance writing gigs. I swallowed hard, my voice steady but sharp. "If Zoe and Finn aren't welcome, Mom, neither am I." She sighed, long and dramatic. "You're blowing this out of proportion. Nathan doesn't make a fuss like this." Of course he didn't. Nathan never had to fight for scraps of approval. I ended the call without another word, my hands trembling as I set the phone down. The compass glinted in the light, mocking me with its frozen needle. I wanted to hurl it across the room, but instead, I shoved it into a drawer. Out of sight, out of mind. From the living room, I heard Zoe's voice, high and bright, narrating some elaborate adventure she'd roped Finn into. "You're the dragon, Finn, but a nice one." I smiled despite myself, their joy pulling me back from the edge. They didn't deserve to be treated like they were less than. And I was done letting anyone make them feel that way. The next day, Nathan texted, "Mom says you're upset about Christmas. Why do you always have to make everything a big deal? It's one dinner." I stared at the screen, my jaw tight. Of course, Mom had already painted me as the problem. I typed back, "If it's just one dinner, why are your kids invited and mine aren't?" The typing bubbles appeared, then vanished. No reply. Classic Nathan. I didn't tell Zoe or Finn about the call. Instead, I took them to the snowy park down the street, watching them build a lopsided snowman, their mittens soaked and their laughter loud enough to scare the birds. Finn slipped and fell giggling as Zoe helped him up, dusting snow off his jacket. "You're okay, buddy. she said, her voice so kind it made my heart ache. They weren't overwhelming. They were perfect. That night, I checked my bank account, a reflex from years of watching every penny. My breath caught when I saw the balance $900 lower than it should have been. I scrolled through the transactions, my pulse hammering. Coffee shops, department stores, a wine bar, and Burlington charges I hadn't made. Then, I saw Dad's name on the linked credit card. Years ago, when Mom was sick and their savings ran dry, I'd added them as authorized users to help them out. I'd meant to take them off once things stabilized, but I forgot. I trusted them. My mistake. I called Dad the next morning, my voice calm but edged with steel. Why are there charges on my card? Almost $1,000, Dad. He didn't miss a beat. Oh, Lena, we just needed a little help. You've always been so generous and we didn't think you'd care. Didn't think I'd care. I laughed, sharp and bitter. You used my money without asking while telling me my kids aren't good enough for your Christmas table. Are you kidding me? Don't be selfish, he said, his tone hard now. We raised you. We sacrificed for you. This is the least you can do. I hung up my hands, shaking. That night, I canceled the card. No more access, no more help. I looked at the drawer where the compass was hidden, its weight still lingering in my mind. I'd spent my life trying to follow its needle, hoping it would lead me to a family that loved me back. But maybe it was time to find my own direction. The drawer where I'd stashed the compass seemed to hum with a quiet accusation, like it knew I couldn't quite let go. It was mid-November now, the Vermont air sharp with the promise of snow, and my house smelled of cinnamon from the muffins Zoe and Finn were helping me bake. Their giggles filled the kitchen floor, dusting their noses as they argued over who got to crack the eggs. I watched them, my heart full, but heavy, still reeling from Mom's call and Dad's betrayal. I'd canceled their access to my credit card, but the sting of their words, my kids being overwhelming, cut deeper than the missing $900. My phone buzzed again, Nathan's name flashing. I almost ignored it, but something made me pick up. Maybe I wanted answers, or maybe I just wanted to hear him try to justify it. What do you want, Nathan? I asked, keeping my voice low so the kids wouldn't hear. Geez, Lena, relax, he said, his tone dripping with that condescending calm he'd perfected. Mom and Dad are upset. You canceled their card. That's cold even for you. I laughed, short and sharp. Cold. They spent nearly $1,000 of my money without asking Nathan, while telling me my kids aren't good enough for their precious Christmas dinner. You gonna defend that too? He sighed like I was a kid throwing a tantrum. They didn't mean it like that. They're just stressed. You know how tight things have been for them. Tight, I snapped, glancing at the muffin batter Finn was now smearing on the counter. They had enough to hit up a wine bar in Burlington, on my dime. But sure, tell me how they're struggling. There was a pause, the kind that told me he didn't have a good comeback. Look, he said finally, they're family. You don't just cut family off over a misunderstanding. Why can't you just apologize and move on? I gripped the phone tighter. Apologize for what? For not letting them walk all over me. For protecting my kids from people who think they're too much. You're twisting this, he said, his voice hardening. Mom and Dad love Zoe and Finn. They just wanted one nice evening. Clara's girls don't make a scene like your kids do. There, it was the same old line, the one I'd heard my whole life. Nathan's family was perfect. Mine was a problem. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. You know what, Nathan, enjoy your perfect Christmas. I'm done trying to fit into your world. I hung up before he could respond, my hands shaking but my resolve solid. Zoe looked up from the counter, her big brown eyes curious. Who was that, Mommy? Just Uncle Nathan, I said, forcing a smile. He's being a bit silly. Want to help me scoop these muffins? She grinned and grabbed a spoon, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. But as I helped her scoop batter into the tin, my mind was racing. I'd spent years being the good daughter, the one who drove 3 hours to fix their computer, who sent birthday cards, who let them lean on me when times were tough. And for what? To be told, my kids, my heart, my everything were a burden. I decided then and there no more. If they didn't want Zoe and Finn at their table, they didn't get me either. I started small, letting their calls go to voicemail, leaving their texts unread. Mom sent one a few days later. "Lena, we're worried about you. Let's talk this out." I didn't reply. Then Dad, "You're being unreasonable. Call us." I ignored that too. By the time Thanksgiving rolled around, I dodged a dozen messages, each one more insistent than the last. We had our own Thanksgiving, me, Zoe, Finn, and my neighbor Sarah, who'd become like a sister to me. Sarah brought her famous mac and cheese, and we set up a folding table in the living room, decorated with paper snowflakes the kids had cut out. Finn insisted on wearing his dinosaur costume, and Zoe read a Thanksgiving poem she'd written, which was mostly about how much she loved mashed potatoes. We laughed until our sides hurt, and for the first time in years, I felt light, like I wasn't carrying the weight of someone else's expectations. But that night, as I tucked the kids into bed, my phone lit up with an email from Mom. The subject line made my stomach twist. Family matters. I opened it expecting another guilt trip. Instead, it was a forwarded message from their bank, a notice about a missed mortgage payment, with a balance that made my eyes widen. Attached was a note from Mom, "Lena. We've always counted on you. We're in trouble. Please help." I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. They'd been using my card for more than just coffee and wine. They'd been propping up their life, their perfect image, while treating my kids like an afterthought. And now they expected me to bail them out. I closed the laptop, my hands trembling. The compass, still hidden in its drawer, felt like it was watching me, waiting for me to cave. The next morning, I sat Zoe and Finn down with hot cocoa and told them we were starting a new tradition, our own Christmas, just us three, and Sarah. Zoe's eyes lit up. "Can we make a gingerbread house, like a huge one?" Finn chimed in, with dinosaurs on it. I laughed, pulling them into a hug. "Whatever you guys want." But as I started planning our little holiday, a text came through from an unknown number. It was Clara, Nathan's wife, who never texted me. "Lena, we need to talk. It's about Mom and Dad. They're not okay." My stomach sank. I didn't know what they were planning, but I knew it wasn't good. And when I saw what they did next, it turned my world upside down. Clara's text sat on my phone like a ticking bomb. "Lena, we need to talk. It's about Mom and Dad. They're not okay." I stared at it, my thumb hovering over the screen, torn between curiosity and dread. The kids were sprawled on the living room floor, building a fort out of blankets and pillows, their laughter a stark contrast to the knot in my stomach. I didn't want to deal with this, not now, not when I was finally starting to feel free. But something about Clara reaching out when she'd never bothered before made me uneasy. I typed back, "What's going on?" and hit send before I could overthink it. Her reply came fast. "Can we meet tomorrow at the cafe on Main Street? Noon. It's important." I frowned. Clara lived 2 hours away in the same city as Mom and Dad. Why was she coming all the way to my little Vermont town? I agreed. But as I set the phone down, a chill ran through me. The compass, still tucked away in its drawer, felt like it was whispering, pulling me back to a family I was trying to leave behind. The next day, I left Zoe and Finn with Sarah and drove to the cafe, my hands gripping the steering wheel tighter than necessary. The place was cozy with mismatched mugs and the smell of fresh coffee, but I felt like I was walking into a trap. Clara was already there, sitting by the window, her perfect posture and designer scarf screaming Nathan's wife. She looked up as I slid into the booth, her smile tight and practiced. "Thanks for coming, Lena," she said, stirring her latte. "I know things have been tense." I crossed my arms, keeping my voice steady. "Tense is one way to put it. What's this about?" She glanced around like she was checking for eavesdroppers, then leaned in. "Mom and Dad are in trouble. Real trouble. The bank's threatening to foreclose on their house. They've been behind on payments for months." I blinked the words sinking in slowly. And they think I'm going to fix it. After they used my credit card like their personal ATM. Clara's eyes softened, but it felt rehearsed. They didn't mean to hurt you, Lena. They're just desperate. Nathan and I can't cover it, we've got our own expenses. But you've always been the one they rely on. I laughed, sharp and humorless. Rely on? They spent my money without asking Clara, while telling me my kids aren't good enough to sit at their Christmas table. And now they want me to bail them out. She sighed like I was missing the point. They're family, Lena. You don't turn your back on family. And honestly, think about Zoe and Finn. Don't you want them to have their grandparents in their lives? That hit like a punch. Using my kids, the ones they'd rejected, to guilt me, I leaned forward, my voice low. Don't bring my kids into this. They're the reason I'm done with Mom and Dad's games. They deserve better than being treated like second-class grandkids. Clara's face tightened, but she didn't back down. You're being selfish. If you don't help, they could lose everything. Is that what you want? I stared at her, my pulse pounding. Selfish. The word echoed every insult I'd heard growing up. Lena's too emotional, too messy, not like Nathan. I stood, grabbing my coat. Tell them to figure it out themselves. I'm done being their safety net. As I walked out, the cold air hit my face, but it couldn't cool the anger burning inside me. I drove home, my mind racing. They'd always seen me as the fixer, the one who'd drop everything to save them. But I wasn't that person anymore. I had Zoe and Finn to think about, and they were worth more than a lifetime of trying to earn my parents' approval. When I got home, Sarah was teaching the kids how to make paper snowflakes. Finn ran over, waving a lopsided one in my face. Look, Mommy, it's a dinosaur snowflake. I laughed, pulling him into a hug, but my heart was still heavy. Clara's words kept replaying selfish family, Zoe and Finn. I wanted to believe I was doing the right thing, but doubt crept in. What if I was robbing my kids of something by cutting Mom and Dad out? That night, I pulled the compass from its drawer, running my thumb over its scratched surface. I'd loved it as a kid, believing it could guide me anywhere. But now, it just reminded me of how lost I'd felt, always chasing a family that didn't want me. I set it on my nightstand, promising myself I'd get rid of it soon. The next morning, I woke to a voicemail from Mom. Her voice was shaky, not the usual polished tone. Lena, we need you. The bank's giving us until January to catch up or we're done. Please call me back. I deleted it, my hands trembling. But hours later, an email arrived from Nathan with a PDF attachment labeled Family Agreement. I opened it, and my breath caught. It was a contract drafted by Nathan the engineer, who always had to fix things. It outlined a loan they expected me to provide $15,000 to cover their mortgage, with vague promises of repayment when things stabilize. At the bottom, a line about maintaining family unity for the sake of Zoe and Finn. I stared at the screen, my blood boiling. They weren't just asking for help. They were trying to lock me into their world, to keep me tethered with guilt and obligation. I closed the laptop, my decision made. I wasn't signing anything. But as I tucked Zoe and Finn into bed that night, Zoe asked, "Are we seeing Grandma and Grandpa for Christmas?" Her voice was so hopeful it broke my heart. "Not this year, sweetie," I said, brushing her hair back. "But we're going to have the best Christmas ever, just us." She nodded, but her eyes were sad, and I felt that familiar pang of doubt. I was protecting them, wasn't I? Or was I just protecting myself? I didn't know it then, but my parents' next move would make everything crystal clear, and it would change everything. The compass sat on my nightstand, its brass dull under the morning light, a relic of a life I was trying to leave behind. It was early December now, and the Vermont snow blanketed our little town, turning it into a postcard I didn't feel part of. Zoe and Finn were in the living room stringing popcorn for our Christmas tree, their chatter about Santa and hot cocoa filling the house with warmth. But Nathan's family agreement email still gnawed at me, its words $15,000 family unity for the sake of Zoe and Finn burning like a brand. They weren't just asking for money. They were trying to buy my loyalty to keep me in their orbit. I'd ignored the email, deleted Mom's voicemails, and blocked Nathan's number after his last text. You're tearing this family apart. Lena, think about that. But the silence from them didn't feel like peace. It felt like the calm before a storm. I knew my parents too well. They didn't let go of control without a fight. Christmas Eve was supposed to be our fresh start. Sarah came over with her guitar, and we sang off-key carols while the kids decorated cookies, getting more frosting on their faces than on the gingerbread. Zoe had made a star out of tinfoil for the tree, and Finn insisted on hanging a plastic dinosaur ornament right at the top. I laughed, snapping pictures, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. This was my family, messy, loud, perfect. I didn't need Mom and Dad's approval to know that. But then the doorbell rang. My stomach twisted the same way it had every time my phone buzzed with their names. I glanced at Sarah, who raised an eyebrow. Want me to get it? I shook my head, wiping my hands on a dish towel. I've got this. I opened the door, and there they were. Mom, Dad, Nathan, and Clara standing on my snowy porch like a scene from a bad holiday movie. Mom held a wrapped gift, her smile as forced as ever. Dad's face was stern, Nathan's arms crossed, and Clara looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. What are you doing here? I asked, my voice flat, keeping the door half closed. Mom stepped forward, her voice dripping with cheer. Merry Christmas, Lena. We didn't want to spend the holidays apart. This is for Zoe and Finn. She held out the gift, a shiny red box with a gold bow. I didn't take it. You drove 3 hours to drop off a gift, after telling me my kids weren't welcome at your table. Dad cleared his throat, his eyes narrowing. Let's not do this on the doorstep, Lena. We're here to talk, to fix things. Fix things, I laughed, sharp and cold. You sent me a contract demanding 15 grand. You used my money for years without asking. You called my kids overwhelming. There's nothing to fix. Nathan stepped in, his voice low but pointed. You're making this harder than it needs to be. We're family. You don't just walk away from family. I gripped the doorframe, my nails digging into the wood. Family doesn't treat you like a bank account or tell you your kids are a problem. You made your choice when you excluded Zoe and Finn. I'm making mine now. Mom's smile vanished, replaced by a cold glare. You're being selfish, Lena. Think about your children. They need their grandparents. We're willing to forgive you, but you need to meet us halfway. Forgive me. My voice rose, and I caught myself glancing back to make sure the kids couldn't hear. You don't get to play the victim here. You've never seen me or my kids as equal to Nathan's family. I'm done begging for your love. Clara spoke up, her voice soft but calculated. Lena, we're worried about you. You're cutting Zoe and Finn off from their roots. That's not fair to them. We've even looked into grandparents' rights just to make sure they're not losing out. My blood ran cold. Grandparents' rights. The words hit like a freight train, and for a moment I couldn't breathe. They weren't just trying to guilt me. They were threatening to drag me into court to force their way into my kids' lives after rejecting them. I stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind me so Zoe and Finn wouldn't hear. You're threatening me with a lawsuit? I said, my voice low and dangerous. Over my kids. The ones you didn't want at your Christmas dinner because they're too much. Dad's face hardened. We're trying to do what's best for everyone. You're not thinking clearly, Lena. You're letting your emotions cloud your judgment. I laughed loud and unhinged, the sound echoing in the snowy quiet. My judgment's never been clearer. You have no case. You know it, I know it. But if you want to try, go ahead. I've got every text, every email, every voicemail where you demanded money and insulted my kids. You want to take this to a judge, be my guest. Mom gasped, her hand flying to her chest. Lena, how dare you? No. I cut her off, stepping closer. How dare you? You used me. You belittled my kids. And now you think you can bully your way back into our lives. Get off my porch. Nathan's jaw tightened. You'll regret this, Lena. You're burning bridges you can't rebuild. I met his gaze, unflinching. Good. I don't want those bridges. I turned to Mom and Dad, my voice steady. Merry Christmas. Don't come back. I slammed the door, my heart pounding, and leaned against it, catching my breath. Sarah appeared, her eyes wide. You okay? I nodded, though my hands were still shaking. Yeah, just done. That night, we went back to our Christmas Eve cookies carols and the kids' laughter. But as I tucked Zoe and Finn into bed, Zoe's question lingered in my mind. Are we seeing Grandma and Grandpa for Christmas? I'd brushed it off. But now, with the threat of grandparents' rights hanging over me, I felt a flicker of fear. What if they didn't stop? What if they kept pushing, kept trying to control me? I picked up the compass from my nightstand, its needle still frozen. I'd held on to it for so long, thinking it tied me to something worth keeping. But now I saw it for what it was, a symbol of a family that never really wanted me. I walked to the kitchen, opened the trash can, and dropped it in. The thud felt final, like closing a book I'd been rereading for too long. But as I climbed into bed, my phone buzzed with a new email from Dad. The subject line made my heart stop. We're not done. I didn't open it. Not yet. Because whatever they were planning next, I knew it would test every ounce of strength I had left. The unopened email from Dad sat in my inbox like a storm cloud, its subject line, "We're not done," taunting me. It was New Year's Eve, and my little Vermont house glowed with fairy lights, the kids' laughter bouncing off the walls as they danced in their pajamas, waving glow sticks Sarah had brought over. Zoe was teaching Finn how to moonwalk, and Sarah was pretending to DJ with a spatula, making us all crack up. This was what I wanted: joy, freedom, a family that didn't come with strings. But the email lingered, a reminder that my parents weren't done trying to pull me back. I hadn't opened it. Not after their Christmas Eve ambush, not after their threat of grandparents' rights. I'd thrown the compass in the trash, thinking it would sever the tie, but its absence left a strange ache. It wasn't the compass itself I missed. It was the idea of what it once meant, a family I thought I could navigate back to. I shook it off, focusing on the kids. 5 minutes till midnight, I called, handing them sparkling cider in plastic cups. But as the clock ticked closer to 2026, my phone buzzed again. Another email, this time from Mom. Subject: Please Lena. I sighed, my finger hovering over the delete button. But something, curiosity maybe, or exhaustion, made me open it. The message was short, her words uncharacteristically raw. We're sorry, Lena. We were wrong. We're losing the house, and we know we've lost you too. Please, let's talk. For Zoe and Finn. Attached was a scanned letter, handwritten from Dad. We made mistakes. We want to make it right. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. An apology from them. It felt like a trick, another way to reel me in. I closed the email, but the words stuck with me, tugging at the part of me that still wanted to believe they could change. I didn't respond. Instead, I joined the kids, counting down to 10, 9, 8. We shouted Happy New Year as Sarah tossed confetti, and Finn climbed onto my lap, giggling. But my mind was elsewhere. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table, the kids still asleep after our late night. I pulled up the email again, reading Dad's letter. It was full of regrets, how they'd leaned on me too much, how they'd favored Nathan, how they hadn't seen my kids for who they were. We're not perfect, he wrote, but we love you. We want to be better. I didn't know what to feel. Part of me wanted to believe them, but the scars were too deep. I'd spent years chasing their approval, only to be told I wasn't enough. Could I trust this? I called Sarah, needing her clarity. She came over and we sat on the couch with coffee while the kids played in the snow outside. They're desperate, I said, showing her the emails. The bank's coming for their house. This feels like another guilt trip. Sarah sipped her coffee, her eyes sharp. Maybe. But maybe they're finally seeing what they've lost. The question is, what do you want? I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. I want Zoe and Finn to have a family that loves them. But I don't know if Mom and Dad can ever be that. They hurt us too much. She nodded. Then set your terms. If they want back in, they have to earn it. No more free passes. Her words hit home. I'd spent my life giving them passes, letting them take without giving back. If they wanted to be part of our lives, it had to be different. I spent the day drafting a reply, my hands shaking as I typed. I'm glad you're sorry, I wrote. But apologies aren't enough. You hurt me and my kids. You used me. If you want a relationship, it starts with respecting Zoe and Finn as equals. No more favors, no more demands. Meet us at the park this Saturday, 2 p.m. No gifts, no promises. Just show up and listen. I hit send, my heart racing. Saturday came, and I took the kids to the park, their mittens and scarves bright against the snow. I didn't know if Mom and Dad would show, but I felt steady, like I'd finally found my own direction. At 2:05, I saw them, Mom in her long coat, Dad in his old hat, walking toward us. No Nathan, no Clara, just them. Zoe and Finn ran over, hesitant but smiling. Grandma, Grandpa, Mom knelt, her eyes wet, and hugged them. Dad stood back, his face softer than I'd ever seen it. Lena? He said, his voice rough. We're here to listen. We sat on a bench, the kids playing nearby. I laid it out, every hurt, every slight, the years of feeling less than. They didn't interrupt. Mom cried, and Dad gripped her hand. We didn't see it, Mom said. We were wrong, Lena. We want to try. I nodded, my throat tight. It's not going to be easy. You have to prove it. To them. I pointed at Zoe and Finn, laughing as they tossed snowballs. They're not overwhelming. They're my world. Dad nodded, his eyes on the kids. We know. We'll do better. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. But it was a start. We agreed to small steps, park visits, no expectations, no money talk. I drove home with Zoe and Finn, feeling lighter but cautious. Sarah was waiting with hot cocoa, and we spent the evening playing board games, the kids' laughter filling the house. That night, I found the compass in the trash, scratched but intact. I cleaned it off, its needle still stuck. It wasn't a guide anymore, but it was part of my story. I tucked it into a box with old photos, not to hold on to the past, but to remember how far I'd come. I'd found my own way through Zoe's smile, Finn's hugs, and the family I'd chosen. The compass didn't point home anymore. Home was right here,